All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the public information meeting for state project number 0103-0278, safety improvements at the intersection of State Route 642 or West Town Street and Sturtevant Street in the city of Norwich. There is project information on the slide and how to reach us by project email or by phone, which is a monitored voicemail line, and we encourage you to visit the project webpage at the link below. For tonight's meeting, there will be some general housekeeping, followed by team introductions, then a formal presentation of the design, which will include explaining the existing conditions and define the purpose and need of the project, as well as our proposed recommendations. And following the formal presentation, there will be a live question and answer session to answer questions you may have. No person shall, on the basis of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. We highly encourage you to fill out the voluntary post-meeting survey located at the link and QR code shown. There's also a link to our civil rights information from our Office of Equity regarding Title VI. A recording of this presentation will be posted to the Department of Transportation's YouTube channel after the event. Closed captioning, including non-English translation options, are available on Zoom and YouTube. This is a slide regarding Title VI, Notice to the Public. I will leave this up for a few moments. And this is the same slide in Spanish. I'll also leave this up for a few moments. To view captions and subtitles in Zoom, there is a menu button on the bottom of the screen labeled Show Captions, which allows you to pick your chosen speaking language. Closed captioning, including non-English translation options, are available on YouTube after the event. Following, following the formal presentation, there will be a live Q&A session. To access the Q&A tool, select the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom webinar window. A window will pop up where you can type in your question and we will answer it. If you are an audio-only participant, please dial *9 to raise and lower your hand. To contact us, you can reach out by email at dotproject103-278@ct.gov. Again, that's dotproject103-278@ct.gov or by phone at 860-594-2020, which is a monitored voicemail line, or through the Zoom Q&A chat. If you have a question that you think of at a later date, our comment period is open until November 27, 2024, but the Zoom Q&A is only available during this live session. You can also visit the project webpage at https://forward/PORT-0103-0278. This is the project team from the Connecticut Department of Transportation. Our Division Chief of Bridges is Bart Sweeney. The Principal Engineer of the Bridge Design Group is Andrew Cardinelli. The Project Manager from the Bridge Design Group is Kevin Blasi. I myself, Kwasam Alajan, am the Project Engineer from the Bridge Design Group. Joseph Jaswitz is the Project Engineer from the Highway Design Group. Joshua Marcinkowski is the design engineer from the Highway Design Group, and Kathleen Erickson is the rights of way coordinator. Shown within the circle are the project limits along State Route 642 or West Town Street. To the west of the project site is Route 395, and to the south is the Yantic River. The traffic volume is approximately 11,000 vehicles per day. There are 7 retaining walls within the project limits. The Route 642 corridor is constrained on both sides by existing retaining walls that are located on private property. Retaining walls 100, 101, and 102 carry a substandard 3-cable guide rail. There is an existing unmarked bus stop shown by the red dot near wall E1. Crash data in the project limits was gathered from 2018 to 2021. The majority of crashes are fixed object crashes. There were 9 total crashes through the curve, with 3 resulting in injuries. There is a pattern of roadside departures through the curve, including a 2019 crash that resulted in compromising a section of 3-cable rail and damaging retaining wall 102. The super elevation and curve radius don't meet design standards through the curve shown in the photo. The purpose of this project is to replace the existing substandard 3-cable guide rail with a rail system that meets current federal standards and to improve the highway geometry. The approximate limits for removal of the existing 3-cable guide rail and concrete cap of retaining wall 102 are shown here by the red line. The substandard wire rail system will be removed, along with the existing sidewalk, concrete cap, and the top portion of the existing dry stack wall, and replaced with a rail system that meets current federal standards mounted on a moment slab. A moment slab is a self-supporting slab designed to carry a rail system that resists overturning or sliding from vehicle impact. I will now hand over the presentation to Josh Marcinkowski from the Highway Design Group.
Thank you, Kwasum. So my name is Josh Marcinkowski. I'm the lead state highway designer for this project, and I will begin with a brief overview of the general proposed roadway design. So we are proposing 11-foot travel lanes in each direction. The shoulder width will vary by the direction. So for the eastbound direction, which is on the south side of Route 642 on your screen here, we are proposing a varying shoulder width of 2 to 4 feet with the minimum 2-foot shoulder occurring in front of wall 102. For the westbound direction, we will be posing a continuous 5-foot wide shoulder throughout the project limits. And as previously mentioned in the presentation before, we have an existing curve which does not meet current CT/DOT standards for the minimum curve radii, roadway cross slope, and driver sightline. So in order to get this curve to meet current CT/DOT standards, we're going to have to do a couple of things, one of them being an earth cut on that wooded area back slope along the inside of the curve will have to be cut to provide the proper driver sightline. We will have to perform roadway full depth reconstruction through the existing curve in order to flatten the curve and provide the proper roadway cross slope through the curve. The proper roadway cross slope means that we will have to super elevate the roadway inside the limits of the curve. The super elevation will allow will help drivers to stay inside the roadway while navigating the curve. Super elevation is just a roadway design feature that banks the roadway to keep vehicles from skidding or tipping while navigating the curve. The roadway will be rotated along the center line of the roadway, which means that the outside edge of the roadway here will be higher than the inside of the edge. Section A here is just a typical section of what the roadway will look like at its full super elevation. You can see the roadway cross slope is carried from one edge of the road to the other edge of the road on full super elevation. And you can also see the extent of the earth cut, which is required to establish the proper driver sight line through that curve. Moving into the proposed roadside improvements, CTDOT has analyzed 3 locations where existing 3-cable guide rail on top of retaining walls are located along the south side of State Route 642. The locations of Wall 100 and Wall 102, it is proposed to bury the entirety of the existing retaining walls and remove that existing 3-cable guide rail. This will help reduce future roadway maintenance costs, as well as the grass slope will be a recoverable slope. In the possible event of an errant vehicle, they will be able to recover. In the case of Wall 102, only a slight portion of that retaining wall will be graded out at that multi-residential driveway. New metal beam rail will be placed there to protect the retaining wall that Quasim presented previously. Here is a typical section of how the roadway will look at each retaining wall where it's going to be graded out. So you can see the existing retaining wall portion of it will be removed by this red shape here. And then there's that grass recoverable slope you see here. So realigning and flattening that horizontal curve that I was discussing in the previous slides will allow us to install a 2.5 foot wide buffer located along the south side of State Route 642. The buffer will be made of concrete material at this point. That buffer will be placed between the curb and the sidewalk, and this will allow those existing utility poles that are located within the sidewalk to be relocated out of the sidewalk and into the buffer, so we can provide a continuously 5 foot wide sidewalk through the project limits on the south side of State 642, which is required by the department's new complete streets policy. Additionally, there is an existing sidewalk gap where you can see a worn path from pedestrian travel. This will be closed through the proposed project with new sidewalk. So here's the typical roadway section to show you how the proposed sidewalk and roadway will look in the finalized conditions. I've laid out the existing conditions in green here. We can see the existing center line, the existing shoulder, edge of road, and the existing sidewalk. This is the south side where I'm circling here. This is the south side of State Route 642, where I mentioned before we have those utility poles that are located within the existing sidewalk, which are restricting the sidewalk locally at each pole to be sub-ADA standards. Just a quick note, ADA stands for the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was a civil rights law passed to protect people with disabilities from discrimination in many areas of life, including transportation, which is our case here. And it is enforced by the Department of Justice, so we must meet that criteria. Now, just moving back to the design here, I'm going to show you what happens when we realign the curve. It allows us to have additional room to install that 2.5 foot wide buffer to move that utility pole out of the sidewalk into the buffer to achieve that 5 foot wide sidewalk. And here's a photo taken where this typical section was cut for reference. We do have a bus stop located within the project limits. It is owned and operated by the Southeast Area Transit District. Currently, the bus stop does not have any signage or pedestrian accommodations to it, which would allow users to safely access the bus stop, which does not meet our current CTDOT complete streets policy. So we are proposing to relocate that bus stop to the intersection of Whiteman Ave and West Town Street, where we will install a new concrete pad to allow riders to safely embark and disembark the bus. Additionally, we will install ADA compliant sidewalk ramps and a painted crosswalk to allow users to safely access the bus stop or to continue walking along West Town Street. With that being said, I'd like to turn the presentation back over to Quasim. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. A few important points regarding construction considerations. Traffic shifts will be required to perform the proposed work. These shifts will place the traffic in an alternating one-way configuration. The alternating one-way configuration will be implemented via temporary signalization for longer time frames and by flaggers for shorter time frames. Pedestrian and driveway access will be maintained throughout the duration of the project. This is a representative cross-section of West Town Street showing the underground utilities. From left to right is a 6-inch underdrain, a 3-phase direct burial electrical line, a 24-inch water main, a concrete encased telecom service, an 8-inch water main, and a 6-inch gas main. The gas main will require either temporary support during construction operations for the sidewalk or relocation in advance of the sidewalk work. It's possible that relocation of the gas main may also require relocation of the 8-inch water main to provide required utility clearances. These options and other required relocations will be finalized with the affected utilities as the design progresses. This project will require several property easements, including construction easements, sloping for the safety of the highway, and an access easement to gain access to an existing drainage right-of-way. Partial sliver acquisitions are also anticipated to accommodate sidewalk improvement along the corridor. I will now hand the presentation over to Kathleen Erickson.
Thank you, Quasim. So again, my name is Kathleen Erickson, and I'm an assistant project coordinator with the department's Division of Rights of Way. Our office is responsible for acquiring the property rights that are needed for transportation projects all throughout the state. So I'll be giving you a brief overview of what our acquisition process looks like. But before I get further into that, though, I do just want to mention that the specific property impacts for this project are still being finalized, and they may change as the design progresses. Also, any required property rights will be acquired in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes, Sections 13A-73 and 13A-98E, as well as the Uniform Act. And the next slide, please. So the right-of-way acquisition process begins once the design has progressed to a development milestone and all the impacts from the project have been determined. At that point, each affected property owner will receive from our office a formal letter of intent to acquire, along with a property map which depicts the exact property rights to be acquired. And on the screen here, you can see a sample of what the property maps look like. Next, our office will determine the fair market value of those property rights, which will be used to establish an offer of just compensation. That offer will be sent out to the property owner in writing, and a right-of-way agent will be available to meet with the property owner to explain the project, go over the specific impacts to their property, and to explain the state's offer. The property owner will have a reasonable amount of time, which is typically about 30 days, to consider the state's offer and to enter into negotiations. Once an agreement has been reached, the department will prepare all the necessary paperwork to record the deed and the property map on the town land records. However, if an agreement cannot be reached, in order to keep on schedule, the department may acquire the necessary property rights through its power of eminent domain. In that event, the state will file a notice of condemnation in the Superior Court, along with a monetary deposit in the amount of the state's offer. The owner would then have 6 months from that date to file an appeal if they felt the state's offer was inadequate. Now, whether or not the owner chooses to appeal, the money deposited in the court is available to be withdrawn by the owner at any time. It is important to note, though, that the state will only acquire property rights that are needed for the project. If there are any questions, though, regarding the right-of-way acquisition process, I'm happy to answer them during the Q&A portion of tonight's meeting. But for now, I'm going to turn it back over to Quasem to continue the presentation.
Thanks, Kathleen. Design completion for the project is spring 2026. Construction will take place in fall 2026 through summer and fall 2027. And the construction cost is approximately $3 million.
Thank you, Quasem. So folks, that concludes our presentation for this evening. So at this time, we'll be entering into our question and answer portion of the evening. So we're monitoring the Q&A within Zoom. We also have our eyes on the email. And as far as the voicemail, that's something that we'll be checking over the next several days each day and providing answers within a day or so to either voicemail or email as they come in. But please feel free to post a question to the Q&A within Zoom here by following the instructions Quasem provided earlier. Basically, at the bottom of your screen, clicking on the question mark for the Q&A portion, posting a question, and we will respond to that question in kind. So with that, I'll just repeat. You can reach us by email at dotproject103-278@ct.gov, by phone at 860-594-2020. And again, project webpage, https://POR.TAL.CT.gov/DOT-NOR-WICH-0103-0278. And we'll certainly be here over the next several minutes or as long as it takes for people to post questions and for us to get answers to your questions. So we won't be concluding this meeting anytime soon here, unless no questions roll in over the next several minutes. But take your time, post a question. If for some reason you need to, it's easier for you to send an email, feel free to do that. And if we can catch the email, we'll certainly reply to the email. Perhaps live here. Okay, so a question's come in from Paula Whitley Minor. Paula says, I'm concerned about the speed on West Town Street. If you straighten the road, cars will increase their speed. How will this be controlled? Joe, do you wanna take that for me?
I'll start that off. So there's a couple of things that we're going to be doing. Obviously, we talked about realigning the curve, but as a part of that, we are also reducing travel lane widths and providing a little bit more consistency through the corridor. Josh talked about super elevation, which basically just we're going to be pitching the road. Quasem, maybe if we jump to slide 38. So we'll be rotating the road along its center line and raising the outside edge of the roadway that's adjacent to the curb line where the sidewalk would be. So that's designed to basically keep vehicles on that trajectory so they can navigate that curve appropriately. We recognize that speeds have become an issue through here, but with these treatments, we believe that it'll give a little bit more driver comfort while not increasing vehicle speeds as well.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, Paul has followed up, asking, she notes, I understand with the Complete Streets program, pinch points can be installed to help slow them down. Will you do this? Joe, is that something you can speak to again here? I'm a little not sure as far as pinch points, what Paul might be referring to.
Paula, do you think you could elaborate what you're referring to as pinch points? We kind of took a balanced approach when we designed this, not to have other adverse effects on adjacent property, like with shoulder widths and whatnot. But I'm not sure what you mean by pinch points exactly. We want to kind of provide a safe pedestrian path connecting those sidewalks throughout our corridor, because due to how close proximity to the school, as well as provide pedestrian access to both sides of the street for people to reach the bus stops.
Thank you, Joe.
Awesome. If we go back to slide 29.
So again, DOT, the email is DOTPROJECT 103-278 @ct.gov. Phone 860-594-2020. If you call the voicemail line, please reference this project, as this is a shared voicemail between several projects that are ongoing. So please be sure to reference this project if you leave a message. 860-594-2020. And again, you can visit the project webpage. Paula, following up, she says, or she writes here, I am also wanting to advocate for Norwich aesthetics, meaning attractive roadways. What are the concrete barriers you mentioned? How would they look? The sidewalk does need protection, but how would it look? So I guess I'll take the start of that, or perhaps the entirety of it. Um, the The barrier I think you're referring to, I'm going to guess is what we were referring to as the moment slab and the three tube uh crash rail system. Um, it'll be basically a standard look sidewalk. The moment slab will. There's no plan to do any aesthetic treatments as of this time. That's not something that is necessarily off the table, however. It's something we can consider. Um, but at this time, there's no aesthetic treatments that are planned. So I think we're talking about standard looking sidewalks, basically standard rail system. So yeah, if you want to bring up slide 39 and 40, Quasum, we can show a picture Josh is mentioning. So here's so 30, I guess the top. So the rail system would be as shown at the top picture. Don't pay attention to the bottom picture. We're not putting in a crash attenuator, but the top photo you see here in this slide um, is the type of rail system we'd be putting in. And here's um, our three tube system that would run along the top of retaining wall 102. Paula, following up, are you then considering Jersey barriers? I see the image. Thank you. Paula, no Jersey barriers here. And I'm not sure if it's clear, so I think I'll make it clear here. When you note protecting the sidewalks, we're not going to have a barrier between sidewalk and road. I'm not sure if that's where you're going with that. And you're welcome. I just want to make that clear. If that was something you were considering, or anybody else that might be considering that, we're not having any kind of concrete barriers between sidewalk and roadway. But we are, however, I want to reiterate that there's a 2-foot buffer that will be incorporated into our realigned roadway to allow for a little more room between sidewalk and roadway.
Yeah, and in regards to the buffer, typically that's a different treatment than the actual concrete sidewalk itself. We want to differentiate between those two areas because the concrete sidewalk is intended for the pedestrian circulation path, whereas the buffer is just more intended to store objects such as mailboxes, utility poles, and whatnot. So often it is a slightly different treatment. But those treatments will be worked out with the municipality as design progresses.
Good questions. And if there's anybody else, please feel free to drop something in the Q&A. Once again, email dotproject103-278@ct.gov. Phone 860-594-2020. Be sure to reference this project if leaving a voicemail. And again, you can, at this time, drop a question in our Q&A within this Zoom. And once again, this comment period, it will be open through November 27th. So we will be monitoring the project email as well as the voicemail, and we'll be responding as quickly as possible within hopefully a day or perhaps two to any questions that come in that time, in that comment period. We'll give her another few minutes if there's no more questions, but we'll certainly hang out for another few minutes, make sure everybody is satisfied as far as this evening goes. Again, we will be certainly monitoring that that phone and email. So if you think of something after this meeting has ended, or if you're watching this recording because you weren't able to make the live meeting, there are those two opportunities, voicemail and an email to leave a comment or question. Patty Small asks, or she notes, anything that can be done for minimal care sidewalks would be appreciated, meaning if there are new products available to assist in winter care. I think so. And Joe, I think we'll take that as a comment. I don't know that Miss Small is looking for a response at this point. I spoke with Miss Small earlier, um, earlier today, and I think she's just wants to be sure that if there is some technology out there that assists with sidewalk maintenance somehow, that we consider that as part of the design. I'm not sure that there is something that can be done regarding maintenance of sidewalk or cleaning sidewalks. But I know that this is a situation where, folks are responsible for the sidewalk in front of their house during snow cleaning operations, and of course that can be tricky. Um, and so I think that's her comment is related to that. Appreciate the comments and questions, and we'll give it a few more minutes here this evening. Okay, so Miss Small is writes, yes, that is correct. I am also in favor of Jersey barrier protection when walking. However, there isn't a beautiful design yet. Thanks. Um, that is, of course, very true as far as Jersey barriers go. They're not the prettiest things in the world. But again, there's not a plan, nor can there be a plan to put barrier or any kind of protective measures in front of the sidewalk. There's just not I guess I'd say, Joe, that we just don't have the room um, to put, that kind of protection, correct? I mean, that's the,
Yeah, there's not enough room there, but I also want to move away from the term Jersey barrier, right? We often assume Jersey barrier is a concrete barrier, whereas at Wall 102 are proposing um, it's a metal tube system as shown in those previous pictures.
right. But that tube system is not a protective measure between sidewalk and roadway. That's just a system to protect um, errant vehicles from going, you know, off-road.
Yep. So I'll give a little bit of background on this location that's on US Route 1 in Groton. This is right up the street from downtown Mystic. So if you're in that area and are driving by, you could kind of see this project was recently completed. But this it would kind of look comparable to this with the sidewalk in front of it.
So I'll give it another minute. And if there are no more questions or comments, we'll wrap it up for the night. Um, let's give it another minute. Okay, I think we'll call it an evening then. I want to thank the design team that put this presentation together. Great job. Um, thank you, Kathleen, for the information this evening. And again, Kathleen is available for as she noted in the presentation, she can be reached if there are questions regarding right-of-way acquisitions. We will be monitoring the voicemail, the email within the November 27th comment period. This presentation will be available as a recording within, if not tomorrow, within the next couple of days. I believe it's pretty quick turnaround for us to get this posted up to our YouTube channel, to the department's YouTube channel. And with that, I wish everybody a good evening and thank you for your attendance this evening and the great questions and comments. Really appreciate it. Thank you.